Hello, everyone, and welcome to the start of a brand new series from the Chronowalkers. These are our Day Zero Dech Techs. So, what's the concept here? This is you're going to the LGS, you just cracked a couple of boxes of Origins, as we all love to do, and you just want to put a deck together, acknowledging, the kind of things that you'll need for counterplay from opponent deck, but not with a specific meta in mind to kind of beat. These are kind of some starting decks that we're put together as a little starting place for you. And then we'll be hopefully playing them against each other and maybe showing you some gameplay footage later as well. We're starting with a champion that's, I think, a favorite of both of ours, which is Alta, her electric damage, her awesome health, and her awesome aura. And her awesome awareness. Too much awesome.
And are also a color affiliation as well.
Yes, an awesome affiliation. Absolutely. But yeah, I guess, Eric, why don't you take us away? Since I know you, in a fever dream, put this together. So why don't you take us away with
Yeah. All right.
an introduction?
All right. Yeah. Thank you. I would like to go over this deck, but beforehand, I would like to shout out to Coliseum of Fate and its Fate Weaver deck builder. It's a very great site that I used to make this deck and will be using to make other decks. There's a link in the doobly-doo. That is the technical name for it. And where it'll take you to this deck, and you'll not only see this deck, but you can see it change over time as I try to adjust it, since this is just basically a first pass.
And then you can try it out for yourself in the Coliseum of Fate.
That's right. Yeah, you try it out for yourself. It's a great tool to use to not only build decks, but also play. And as you'll be seeing, not only in this video, but in future videos. So starting out, when building this deck, I started with Axon deck building techniques, which we talked about in one of our previous videos. Basically, start with Epiphany, you start with Dedicated Studies. Those cards synergize very well with each other. They're just so powerful. However,
hold on a second, though. What do we have? We only got 3. What's going on here, Eric? Justify this decision.
So, yes, there are only 3 Epiphanies. I know it's restricted to 4, so generally you want to play, the best card in the game, as many copies as you can. But one issue, especially in this deck, which hopefully or at some point might be corrected as we go along, try to figure this out, is its aura turns. If you look in the lower left-hand corner, aura turns, which is the mathematical turn in which you run out of aura with this deck, assuming that you play every card that you draw.
So that's a top 12 cards, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, that's not too many. And Epiphany, not only are you spending aura, but you're also seeing way more cards, so you actually will lower that amount of aura turns if you play Epiphanies out. And as you might see in some gameplay, this does become an issue if you play too many Epiphanies. So I just went down to 3 because I felt like our aura was too heavily taxed in this deck. I did include 1 Caustic Millipede, just because I think it's a very powerful summon. It can really deal some good damage, obviously, with its 4 Swift Attack and its Decay brand. And at 6 health, it can be hard to kill. But also the mental damage you will do on your opponent. They see that clock ticking, and they start freaking out. They start panicking, like, oh no. It can really do wonders. Plus, they'll try everything they can to avoid getting hit by it.
No, I think that's actually a great point you bring up, Eric, is that Caustic Millipede, more than I think almost any other card in Genesis, is like a 1-card win condition to a certain degree. Like if you've got a Caustic Millipede hit on the enemy champion, you've got the Decay brand. Theoretically, if you can find a way to just survive, you will win the game, because their health will hit 0 no matter what, barring some sideboard pieces potentially. But
that's correct. Yep.
For someone who's not ready for it, maybe is the best way to put it, that it will win. So the 1 copy, it's not actually unreasonable. Yeah,
and if you do notice, there is the white 1 right in the center of the Caustic Millipede, but there is a blue 3 to the right. That is the amount in the Forethoughts. Now, the Forethoughts aren't fully fleshed out for this deck yet, but I did want to have a 3 in the Forethoughts so that in games that might go really long, like against, say, an Iblis, I might take out all 3 of my Epiphanies and put in those 3 Caustic Millipedes.
A Decayed Iblis is going to eventually die.
As you might see, Iblis is very hard to kill.
Yes.
And then there's just 2 Electric Pheromones. I think this is just a really powerful card. But it is another one that might come out in games 2 and 3 against non-summoned decks,
6 damage in that 2x3 square. It's a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's a ton of damage. So then we're going to skip 7 cheese and go straight to 6 cheese. Chronowalker, very good card, obviously. I think you want to have some always. 2 is a good number of Chronowalkers. But then there are some on the sideboard because, again, if you are playing against a more aggressive deck, you will want those Chronowalkers to, avoid dying. It's very important.
Yeah. And like Chrono Walker, like don't be afraid to use it proactively. Obviously, the decoy trigger is great when you get to blank someone else's card play or ability activation. But just being able to reposition so that you can play one of your action speed cards, like your electrical storms, your electro pheromones, your caustic millipede, or any of the other summons, like that's not something that's trivial or should be shrugged off. Like have that in your back pocket as a play to do.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then speaking of AoEs, we have Electrical Storm, another strong AoE. We have some more in the sideboard, in the forethoughts. Just bring those in against more summoner heavy decks.
So I think this is a good time to ask the question. If we're in Axon Phage, we have access to Tsunami. We can save 1 chi and pay a little bit more aura, but we have a good aura pool. So yeah, why did you decide maining Electrical Storm? Is this a nod to like Ariel's prevalence in the previous meta that you want to
No,
start
it's
off?
it's a nod to the fact that I have Coronavirus and Electric Pillar on the deck,
Ah, okay.
which
Right.
we will get to right now. Actually, we can look at Coronavirus. I also actually will mention that the tsunamis are in the sideboard, or they will be when we actually make one. But
Right.
for Coronavirus, it's one of the part of the brand cycle. This card is a struggle because this card and Winged Elate are both insanely strong 6Gs that we want, but I don't know the proper split, and maybe we want to go up more of those. I'm not sure how much left we can cut, especially since we already have maybe too many electric strikes at the 3 tree level. But
Right.
yeah, this is very strong, and if you notice, there are another 4 in the forethoughts because if Iblis is meta. You're gonna need that brand just to be able to damage her in any way.
Yes, yeah, with all those electric strikes.
Yeah.
I will say my instinct for the Picorna Winged Elite split is exactly where you landed.
But Winged Elate, also an amazing card. Being able to just kind of flood the board with these 1/1s is not trivial. You can really force your opponent into awkward spots. And with your electric pillars and Picorna viruses, those
Mm.
Vidutas aren't something you can just straight up ignore anymore.
Yeah, I
Especially if
mean,
you're
like,
Iblis, who could have
I
ignored
mean,
it before.
everything here is dealing electric damage, right? Except for Chrono Walker.
Yeah, and as you'll see in the games, like that electric brand will wins the game. There are times when I literally can't deal damage for the rest of the game unless I can force Iblis near that electric pillar or save my coronavirus from dying in some way. So it's very important. So so then moving on 5 cheese and side stuff. So I have mentioned that our aura turns is kind of low. We've spent a lot of aura. So there is a card, Illusory Misplacement, which is probably better than Sidestep, but it costs aura. So this is kind of a concession where it's a defensive card that costs energy, and we need to have something that plays with energy. In fact, we might even need more, because that way we can actually play cards in the late game. So that's just kind of why it's here over a card that's probably a little bit better. And
Right.
as we move forward, we'll probably need to add more energy spenders. And then we have Electric Pillar, which we touched on before. The brand is very important. There are some more in the forethoughts because this game that you will be seeing, or these games is against Iblis. Definitely more consideration for that, which is why there's more on the sideboard. And yeah, if Iblis is going to be a thing, you're going to need your electric pillars and your coronaviruses. I don't know how strong it'll be if Iblis isn't a meta pick, but for now, I think in an open meta, electric pillar is actually pretty good.
Yeah, there's also some really interesting decision in choosing electric pillar. Even I don't think you cut the coronaviruses, like you cut other things that aren't doing brands, but the like electric pillar being able to drop down to any unoccupied spot at action speed and having 6 health, which is like not a trivial amount of health. Because like remember, the weakness to Iblis is no energy and a very low pull. So like if Iblis has to keep on spending cards to like deal with a high health total, like the 6 of Electric Pillar, like just maybe 2 or 3 of these in the playing field maybe does, like forces Iblis to kind of like, wait, okay, what do I need to deal with now? But anywhere I go, I'm going to be an electric band.
Yeah. And
Um,
also to note that Iblis has that action heavy attack. which makes it very hard for her to get out of the electric pillar range and still
Right.
be able to attack. So that's definitely an important thing to factor into it.
Uh,
But and all right, and then the last 5 cheat card we have Taser. So this is another just like basic 3 electric damage, 12 aura card. It also forces out energy pavement. So this is actually something I've been thinking about. Is Taser is a good card, and it you can really burn people out, especially if you go like drop down an electric pillar, play a bunch of tasers out. You can deal a bunch of damage. You're not
yeah.
necessarily some sort of bird style combo deck, but with the right hand, you can definitely burn people out. I will, for future reference, think you could be a split between this and Called Shot, because we definitely
Yes.
want to add more energy spenders.
Energy spenders, absolutely.
So
That's
that's
exactly
definitely
what my
something
head
to
was.
think about. Yeah. So how important is getting the electric damage versus being able to play more cards throughout the game? That's something that we will have to test as we go forward.
All right, let's pop over to the 4 cheese.
Yeah, so the 4 cheese dedicated studies, we mentioned this goes well with Epiphany. Just
Right.
having 4 here seems pretty good. Again, it's
Yeah.
also an energy spender, not a crazy amount of energy, but it's there. And it just really helps filter your deck. And because we have so many electric strikes, you'll often have very good fodder to discard. So that's
Yeah.
basically it. And then we have Bombardier Beetle. This
Yes, this
is
is an interesting one.
so this is a low aura card, which is kind of nice. It's got the range on it, which we like, and it does electric damage, which is also very good. So was actually really surprisingly good because it can really, if you get your wing delayed out and have a swarm of Vyutas, this can kind of shoot over them while it's like slightly protected and at a pretty low aura cost, so you don't mind spending it to get it down. And it can deal some solid damage, especially if you can get a brand on them. You're dealing a really good amount of damage and pretty cheap in chi and an aura.
Yeah, the 2 attack, the 2 swift attack, 1 health is kind of like a sweet spot. Yeah, Beetle, like that cheap cost, that awesome awareness, and then electric damage to fit our theme, like makes a lot of sense.
And I will note that there is that Axon card that costs 10 aura that also has 2 electric attack. But basically this went out simply because it costs less aura, and we're trying to conserve that aura because they're going to be drawing a lot of cards, and you want to be able to play more cards. And then finally, 3 cheese, we have 10 electric strikes. We
One
have
fifth of our deck right here.
we have a lot of these higher cost cards. If you look, 6 and 8 cheese are like a lot of the deck. There's we had to kind of balance that out by like 10 whole 3 chi cards. That being said, they're not terrible. We can discard them to dedicated studies, and if we can get a brand on our opponents, they're actually almost upgraded to a 4 chi card.
Yes, no,
But
like
yeah,
the electric strike is great.
they're not that good, and you're definitely going to lose games because you drew 5 of these in your opening hand. That's an unfortunate issue. It's not a terrible concession, but it's going to be something that you have to deal with. And this is also something to think about as we go forward. If Aura Purge becomes a heavily played card, we might go down the Epiphanies and dedicated studies, and that'll free up some chi that maybe we can get rid of some of these electric strikes, go up some all-ins, and kind of play more of like a mid-range deck with a closer chi value. But for now, this is kind of where we landed.
Yeah, want to showcase the electric brand and the electric damage. Absolutely. No, I
Mm-hmm.
like it.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
so that is our Alta Dech Tech Day Zero deck, and hopefully you'll follow us as we build upon this deck and see where it ends up, in a couple of months.